Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is the show where I get to talk about sports, I get to talk about business, and I get to talk about everything in between. Today, my incredible guest, I have Bodine Sanders. He's a former college football player and author of Race Against Race. Bodine, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
The pleasure is all mine, brother, as we're here to talk about your book. I guess I got to plug mine as well. Mine's coming out this week, so we'll see what happens there. But Bodine, the first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
Wow. That's a great question to start off. Like
Thank you.
most kids growing up in America and probably all over the world, but definitely let's stick to America. We grow up watching sports. We were introduced to sports by either our father, our uncle, our mother, our aunt, someone in the family first, right? It starts off within the family and then it grows. And you go from there to learning how to appreciate the sport, right? And the excitement of it, the entertainment of it, the roughness of it, the competitive nature of it, the competition of it. So, I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. And down south, one of the cliche terms that is said is sports is the second religion in the South, especially football, right? Football is the king in the South. And, you follow the SEC, the ACC. So you being a lover of sports, you know that. So you grow up loving sports, you watch it on TV, and the next thing you know, you find a particular athlete that you feel matches your personality, or plays a particular position that you may be playing at that time, or you dream to play that position, and then you want to be like that athlete, right? The biggest ad campaign in our history was what? Be like Mike, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's real. That's true. It happens every single day in this country. So it started there as a kid. Unfortunately for me, my mom wouldn't allow me to play Pee Wee, Pop Warner, or Little League football or T-ball or anything. She was not having any of it. So that dream really built and consumed me until I was able to play. And I wasn't able to play until junior high school, which I guess they call middle school now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, your mom should have known by letting you not play. Of course, that's going to be the only thing you want to do, right? So that's always gotta love kids. If they can't have something, that's the only thing they want. So, and I think it's really interesting, man. And I'm excited to kind of get into the book a little bit, and having it, it's about you, it's about your story, the ups and the downs, obviously, the positives, the negatives that everybody can get from it. But I guess why did you want to write a book? Right. Like I ask these questions too, because again, I just went through this process. We essentially went through the almost the exact same process at the same time, which I think is really cool. But why did you want to write a book outside of what the book is specifically about? Was there ever just like a part of you that was like, well, at some point I'll put some words on a piece of paper and let people read it? Or was it specific to your story? Like, what are some of the reasons behind it?
Well, again, Mike, that's another great question. There are two reasons why I wanted to write the book and ended up writing the book. The first reason, to answer your question specifically, is when I was attending Villanova, I met one of Villanova's great institutions, a gentleman by the name of Bob Capone, who attended school at Villanova, was a student athlete, became a coach, got involved in the administrative staff and on the alumni side. And he recruited Howie Long to Villanova. So I had an opportunity to travel down to a high school lacrosse state tournament. And Mr. Capone asked me to travel to that tournament with him. And we drove down, just down to Maryland, here in Pennsylvania, not far. And it was Howie Long's youngest son's lacrosse tournament. And I had met Howie once or twice before, but never had a chance to have an extended conversation with him. During that trip, we're in a parking lot, we're tailgating a little bit, meaning we're just hanging out, having conversations. And Mr. Capone decided to tell Howie my story about how I was able to grow up in an all-Black environment in Florida, not have being coached by all-Black men. I get an opportunity. I didn't get a scholarship out of high school. I got lucky, was thrown a Hail Mary, got into college. The first college I attended was the oldest HBCU in the country, Cheney University, here in Pennsylvania, in Chester County. I was there one semester, coached by all Black coaches. I go on a trip to Villanova, fall in love with it. They're starting their program up again because they dropped it after how long, got drafted to the Raiders. So the program was gone for 3 years, right? So that's my story of getting from Jacksonville to Pennsylvania, then to Villanova. And Mr. Capone tells Howie the story, and Howie, being the sharp guy he is and smart guy and worldly guy, immediately picked up on, the essence of the story. And he said to me, you ought to put that on paper. And I had no idea what he meant. I figured that was Hollywood talk, but he began to tell me the positives of writing a story, right? Getting it out of your head, creating some free bandwidth, right? It's a legacy product you can have hand to your family. People could use it put it on their coffee table, use it as a conversation piece. It could take you in a different direction, those things. And so I was working in corporate America, and the more and more I thought about it, and the more Mr. Capone would tell that story because he could tell it better than me. The guy that could tell your life story better than you. Mr. Capone was that guy, right? And a lot of our teammates call him the Godfather because he was a mentor for a lot of student athletes, right? And he had our respect. So the more and more I thought about it, it just made sense. So I just slowly but surely, while I was working my corporate jobs, if an idea or a memory came to me, I'd write it down on a pad, legal pad, whatever, toss it in the back seat of my SUV and keep it moving. Well, over years and years and years, those papers started to stack up, right? And I can remember, maybe having a friend over to visit, and former teammate or classmate say, "What is all that paper in that box?" And I'm like, "No, don't worry about it. It's work. It's work, right?" I didn't even tell anybody I was thinking about writing a book. So eventually it got to the point where, hey, I figured either I do it now or I'm going to kick myself later if I don't. And the next reason I decided what really sparked me to really move forward with it was when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, and the conversations that started because of that. And if you can remember, every time in our country something happens around race or in the race relation space, I would see a lot of media folks say, well, we need to have the race conversation, right? That would be that's what you would see on TV or you would hear on the radio. And I immediately would say, sometimes I'd scream it out loud, driving in my car or sitting watching it on TV. I'd say, hold on. Athletes on a diverse team have the race conversation because we're together all the time, especially during this season. We're together more than we are with our classmates. We're together more than we are with our families, if your family lives in that immediate area. And we're also together more than your significant other. So athletes are together all the time during the season, weight room, practice, training table, eating, right? Breakfast or lunch or even dinner. If we have study hall. So, and then if you're lucky, and you might be a roommate or live in the same dorm, right? You're just together all the time. So I knew there was a missing piece to that, to the media saying we need to have that conversation. What they should have said was, some of us need to have that conversation, because I know as a football player, and when you talk about sports in general, football has an average of, when you're talking college football, an average of 75 to 125 athletes on the team. That is the largest team sport that we play, right? So when you have all of those personalities, all of those guys who cross socioeconomic backgrounds and religions, right? Mother Nature makes it where you're going to have that conversation. It may start about music. It may start about food. It may start about some type of pop cultural, thing, clothing, right? It could start anywhere, but it starts. And, I like to say, and I even write it in my book, football players are aggressive. Basketball players are passive aggressive. So football players will have that conversation without any doubt, nothing holding them back, voicing their opinions, and there will be strong opinions, right? They will say exactly what they feel and what they think, and then the conversation will continue.
I love it. I think it's very important to understand too, right? You are correct. Whenever anything about race does come up in sports, of course, it is then going to be headline news just anywhere, right? It's either, depending on which side of the aisle you sit on. I think they're all bad people because politicians are the worst. But depending on which side you sit on, you're either a sympathizer or you're a victimizer, or it's just very confusing to me, and it's kind of frustrating to watch. And then, yes, those are the people that have the conversations where many of them haven't been in those situations and don't really know that many people in those situations. So should they be having them? No, we should have more of an open forum of football players, of basketball players, have those conversations so people can actually understand where they are coming from, which I think is important. And yeah, I think it's awesome that you were able to take that information and really what you were able to do over time and put it all together into this book. And so I guess, like, obviously the book is about you. It's about your life. It's about some of the stuff, but I guess tell me some of the intimate details. Tell me some of the stuff that, when we do pick this book up, what are we going to find in there? Because I think that part is very important, right? Like it's about your life. That's great. Well, tell me about your life. Yes, you went to an HBCU, which is fantastic, oldest one in the country. You then go to Villanova. I'm up here in the Northeast, so I'm familiar with Villanova. Had some friends go there, and we like to call it Villanova fun, but that's maybe that's more 2010 lexicon. But talk to me a little bit, like how will people connect with this book? What will this teach people? What's someone going to get from your story specifically, Bodine?
Well, I'm going to add a description that we as Villanovan, the Villanova Nation, can say to each other. And we might get a little upset if somebody outside the family says it. But one thing I learned when I was on the campus was, yes, I heard the term Villanova, but I also is very familiar with the term Vanilla Nova, right?
So another good one. All right.
And that was because our minority ratio was small. Okay. And that's fine. You're going to find that in a lot of situations across college campuses around the country. And that's a different conversation. But to answer your question, my memoir has 7 chapters, 42 topics. So I like to think that the reader, out of those 42 topics, will find something, will be able to connect with one of those topics and come and walk away with, they learned something, they're inspired, right? Encouraged to take the opportunity to build a relationship, if they haven't already, with someone across socioeconomic backgrounds, religions, race, all the above, right? And my story should and can be a way to help them do that. I mean, it's not wrong to say that our white brothers, a lot of our white brothers and sisters, did not grow up in an environment where it was diverse. Okay, there's nothing wrong with saying that. So I applaud folks who are interested in learning about the Black experience so they can then put themselves in the shoes and be able to have a conversation. And again, not they don't come again. I'm not trying to beat up folks who are promoting having those uncomfortable conversations. But my approach is no. I would rather start with the low-hanging fruit, the easy conversations, the same way if you're at a business reception or a networking event through a chamber or someone's house party, right? Cocktail party at their home. You introduce yourself, they introduce themselves, and then you begin a conversation that is positive, that is friendly, that is open. You don't immediately start the conversation with a polarizing, uncomfortable conversation. You're not going to build friends that way. You're not going to, right? So it's the same way when you're talking about race. You start off with the low-hanging fruit, right? Find something that you have in common, right? And then you go from there. So the 42 topics gives folk, the reader, the opportunity to see how I was able to do it. My way isn't, the best way, but it gives an idea of how I was able to adjust, navigate, and come out at graduation with a positive outcome, with no chip on my shoulder, being in that environment that I didn't grow up in. So I think there's enough there to at least start the conversation or give people, some steps where they can at least start the process on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I personally grew up in a very non-diverse area of the country, right? I grew up in the upper middle class. There really wasn't too many minorities there. So that was never something that I personally had ever had too much experience with. I then went to Rutgers University, which is, at least is one of the most diverse campuses, college campuses in the United States. And I loved it. It was kind of cool seeing colors and seeing, hearing different languages and listening to people talk about things. And, one thing, reason why I have this podcast and why I love to talk to people like you, but really just people in general, is to learn their story, to learn their experiences, to see what they went through, because I can guarantee it's very different than what I went through. I didn't go through shit, man. Like what adversity did I face in life? Like, it's like, oh no, I had to wake up for work today. It's like, oh geez, Mike, I wonder how you're going to make it through. So, it's just one of those things where I've always enjoyed just learning how, the backgrounds of others and really just kind of where they came from and how they deal with similar and dissimilar situations that I've been in. It's just, that's always kind of just been an interest of mine. That's why I've always loved it. And so I guess on that side of it, we touched upon, moving from one college to another, going from an HBCU to, I'll use your words, Vanilla Nova, a very non-diverse campus. What are some of the other stories, and what are some of the other there's 42 different topics, right? So I assume does this just take place in those few years, or does this take place over a longer period of time where, you grow and we can see and feel and understand you growing along with those topics and with those conversations?
Yeah, it's a memoir, so it starts with my graduating high school from Jean Ribault High School, Florida, then takes me to Cheney, and then takes me to Villanova, and then it ends with me graduating from Villanova. That's the body of the story. Obviously, I have a intro and a exit, lack of a better word, story that people will enjoy. But yeah, it covers basically how I was able to navigate my way from being in that new environment at Villanova. You're talking about a very affluent school where, I'd say 40% of the students come from well above middle class. You had kids driving convertible BMWs and all kinds of nice cars, but also the academics, very, very tough. I had to adjust there as well. I went to public school my entire, teenage, up until 12th grade. Then I attended Cheney, which is a state school. And then I end up at a private Catholic, Irish, Italian, university. So yes, I write and chronicle how I was able to navigate a lot of those issues that a lot of students face of color. You're talking identity, right? How do I fit in? Where do I fit in? And not just within the mainstream campus, but also within your own Black community. Because what I learned was when I got to Cheney is that there was a good number of student athletes from Florida. They recruited heavily or accepted a lot of students from Florida. So now you're talking about a regional difference, right? Me growing up in the South and meeting African Americans from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, right? Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, right? So even within our own community, there's diversity and learning that, right? So I learned a lot and I absolutely love Cheney, right? The issue was, so someone might ask, why did you leave? Cheney was a Division II football program. Villanova was Division I AA. Before they dropped it, it was a D1 program, right? So my dream was always to play D1 football. So when I got the opportunity to transfer over and do that, I felt like I couldn't turn it down. I couldn't resist, even though I was going to be walking on and hoping to earn a scholarship to stay there and graduate. I did the same thing at Cheney. When I got to Cheney, I was a walk-on. So I had to prove myself. So some of the same things I had to deal with walking on the campus of Cheney University, I had to do the same thing at Villanova, right? So we all have a lot of things in common, as we also have things that are different, right? There's nothing wrong with being different, right? We've learned that over the years, right? But we also should understand it and appreciate the things that we have in common, because the things that we have in common will carry us and sustain us when things get difficult, right? So yeah, so that I again, I have 42 topics. I talk about the police. I talk about interracial dating. I talk about dating within your race. So I cover both aspects of it from a student athlete, the Black athlete, right? I talk about, overcrowded, being in a situation where you're a minority in a majority, right? Or vice versa, right? You could be, for example, there's a good example of when you think about our basketball team. They're when you see the starters on the court, you generally see 4 Black athletes, maybe 3 and 2, of our white brothers on the court. But generally, sometimes you might see 5 African Americans on the court, right? So, but when you look at the team as a whole, it's probably very diverse in terms of a ratio, right? You have those 6, 7, maybe 8 guys that'll play, maybe 9 guys that'll play throughout the year, and then you'll have the guys who are the teammates who practice and help the team get better. And some people might call them bench guys. That's not the right way to call it. They're teammates. They have a role to play, just like the starters and the guys who play have a role, right? So you have your starters, your guys who rotate in, and then you have the guys who are practice players who help the team accomplish the goal of playing. So I use an example of my senior year. There was Ed Pinckney, Dwayne McClain, Gary McClain, and most people thought we just had people outside the family of Villanova probably thought we only had 3 seniors on the team. We didn't. We had 4 seniors. Brian Harrington was the 4th, and Brian Harrington was one of our white brothers, right? But a lot of people didn't know it. But he was just as valuable as a teammate, right? As the 3 seniors who helped win the national championship against Georgetown and Patrick Ewing. He was just as valuable. You didn't see it on game day, but if you were on campus, you saw it during practice.
Exactly. Right? And that is something that people don't realize, right?
Absolutely. So I talk about that. I use that story as an opportunity for folks to see how everybody has a role to play, right? And if you play your role and you do it well, the common goal is to win, and then win a conference championship, and then win the overall championship, right? So everybody has the role to play. And when you talk about race relations, everybody has a role to play. Play your role, do it well. No one has to have the silver bullet, right? It's not, it's my way or the highway. That's not how a team works. Everybody contributes. So if everybody contributes their part, it helps advance the football in a positive direction, and we can do a better job of doing that. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I wrote the book, so I can do my small part of helping advance the conversation regarding race relations, because it's 300 and 330, 360, let's stick to 330 million people in the United States. Everybody has a common story, but everybody has a different story, right? No matter what race you are, what religion you are, everybody has their own individual story. So if we all do our part, we can literally advance the conversation in a positive direction and get and do our best to resolve the race conversation and the race issues. And professional athletes, as you said earlier, Mike, perfect example. During this past 6-8 months, we saw how the NBA did it. We saw how the NFL did it, and the NHL and baseball and all of the sports. They did a better job of voicing their opinion. It wasn't perfect, but they did a better job because they're used to the foundation of sports: discipline, trust your teammate, do it together, right? Everybody has a voice and a vote. How are we going to do this as a team? Do we want to do this as a team, right? Sportsmanship, right? All the foundations of sports that kids are taught at an early age till the time they stops playing a sport. Hopefully they remember that and they use that as an example, right, to advance the ball, advance the topic in a positive way. And Mike Greenberg of ESPN, I once saw him say this statement, and his statement was, "Sports is the fabric of America," right? And if that statement is true, which I believe it is, right, then athletes protesting, getting involved in social justice issues, right? We call it JEDI, justice, equality, diversity, and inclusion, JEDI, right? Athletes getting involved can only strengthen that fabric of America. And I believe that.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
I think so. No, and I think again, thankfully you were able to take your story and contribute to this conversation and help others understand the conversation a little bit more. Because as I said, I came from somewhere that there was no diversity really, like any at all. And so it was always very interesting to me to see how, as I said, others do things that are similar. It's just, simple tasks that are nothing to me, but maybe different and important to somebody else, and vice versa, and really how it works. And as you were saying, you were taking your notes and you're throwing them in your cardboard box or whatever it was, work, let's say, to your friends. And what was it like putting all of those, it's a big story, right? It's your memoir, as you said. What is it like putting those topics and ideas, taking them just from inside your head to putting them onto the piece of paper, to then saying, not only do I want to write this down, I want other people to read that? What was it like going through that process? Because I feel like that can be very heavy at times, especially when talking about and remembering some of the negatives, but also very heavy and emotional when remembering some of the positives that come from this.
Yeah, it was emotional. And sometimes, you've heard coaches. I grew up with coaches and was coached by coaches who would say, check your emotions, right? And basically what that means is, yes, you're during practice, you have to be aggressive. You have to practice harder than what you're going to play. So when you do play, it's muscle memory. You remember your job assignments and all those things. So you work hard during practice so you don't make the mistakes. That's what I meant to say. So you don't make as many mistakes during the game, because a lot of it are mental mistakes because you're tired, right? So I had to relive everything that I wrote about. Every single thing I had to relive. And it was tough at times. It was difficult at times because, the most difficult part of writing was writing about my mom, my godmother, who were, very important to me, obviously, in my life. But, my godmother played a very important role when I was at Villanova, because, again, I wasn't on scholarship, and she established a really good relationship with a financial aid director, and they were on the phone with each other all the time, trying to find money under a rock to keep me in school. And they developed a great relationship. And Jean Fazio, obviously Italian, white, and my godmother, Black, right? But they were both, and my godmother worked for a college in Florida. So she and the financial aid director had something in common. They spoke the same language. So they were able to build a relationship. And I guess that relationship matured and really got strong because they were both talking about me and trying to help me. So Um, yeah, so there are just so many writing about my football coach, my position coach to be specific, how he was the first white coach that I ever had, right? Again, high school, junior high, high school, Cheney, I was coached by black men. I get to Villanova, there's one black coach and all white coaches. So what are the chances I'm going to be coached by that one black coach? Ratio wasn't good. Ratio was right. My position coach was a white coach, and I'll never forget him. Paul Ferraro was his name. And I had black coaches yell when I made a mistake, right? Yell at me like coaches do, especially football coaches. They get in your face, right? You got a helmet on, so they get in your face to make sure they're getting your attention, right? Well, it was the first time I had a white coach get in my face. And then you take my background, born and raised in the former Southern Confederate state, right? In the South, former Jim Crow South, right? I never had, forget a white coach, a white person get in my face and yell in my face. So I had to deal with that. I had to learn to deal with that. And luckily I had teammates, black teammates, who grew up or played with a diverse coaching staff. And they were able to tell me, hey, it's not a big deal. It's not, you'll be all right. So because of their experience, I was able to listen and understand and not feel some kind of way that I had a white coach yelling in my face all the time. But then I learned he was yelling at me all the time because he saw something in me and he wanted to make me better. So I was able to write about that. But I had to relive all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, literally relive all of that. But some of it I was reliving anyway, because, I'm not ashamed to say, I dream a lot. So I've had a number of dreams over the years. Some might call them nightmares. The intro actually is entitled Nightmare Race, because I had nightmares for years. And it's funny, once I started writing my manuscript, those nightmares started to dwindle down. Mm-hmm. And then the more dreams I had weren't necessarily nightmares, they were creative dreams versus nightmares. So, so I relived a lot, absolutely a lot. But it was emotional. Mm-hmm. Some of it was exciting, remembering making a great tackle, right? Remembering recovering a fumble, remembering teammates walking up and smacking you on the head or the shoulder pad, saying great tackle, great hit, remembering how I got the nickname The Hammer as a strong safety. That's a pretty cool thing, right? So lots of emotion.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, it's good. Right? Like sometimes people don't like emotions. I personally do. Remind you that you're human, that you're real, you're alive. So whether they're good or they're bad, at least you can remember that they make you feel some sort of way. And I'd rather feel something than nothing personally. But I guess, Bodine, I mean, like reliving all of them, positives and negatives, it does sound like it was a trip for yourself, writing them down and then finally putting them together in this manuscript. So I guess number one question, where can we go buy this thing, man? I mean, you've been talking it up. I want to check it out. I want everyone listening to check it out. I think it'd be pretty important, again, because of really what's going on in the world right now. I think it is a very topical conversation to have, if not with others, at least with yourself, to understand, hey, like maybe I don't know everything that's going on in the world. Maybe I should pay attention a little bit more. So where can people find it? What's the website, social medias? Give me all the stuff, man.
Good deal. My website is BoDeanSanders.com, and that's Bo-DeanSanders.com. My website has all the information you need. You click on the book page, and it has all of your favorite online retailers. You click on whichever retailer that you love, that you normally buy your books through, and it takes you right to that online retailer, and you can order the book that way. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just that simple. Go to my website, bo-deansanders.com. Get all the information. You'll see all the folks that endorsed my book, which I'm pretty excited about and proud of, from a retired senior executive from ESPN, TV personality, academic, a former professor, nonprofit organization, the National Diversity Council, current voice of the 76ers. So, I'm pretty blessed, lucky enough that folks read my manuscript, believed in it, see there was a need for it, and decided to endorse the book.
That's awesome, man. Well, kudos and congratulations. It sounds like it's very well deserved. So I'll make sure that website is in the show notes for everybody. We'll put it on LinkedIn. We'll put it on YouTube. We'll put it in the show notes. So if you're listening to the podcast form, but Dean, this is awesome, man. Kudos and congratulations on getting the book out there. Very excited to get to check it out just in time for the holiday season, right? So Bo Dean Sanders, college football player, author of Race Against Race. Really appreciate your time today, man.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. Absolutely. The book, it debuts December 21st. You can pre-order it right now.
Love it. Pre-order it right now. Get it just in time for Christmas. I love it. Thanks, Bo Dean.
Thank you, Mike.
Right. Bye, everybody.